Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Taya master Anne-Marie Young. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And Anne-Marie actually was with me earlier today, but I forgot to switch the intro video around to say there's actually Joel with me tonight. So it's actually Joel Elston. Just kind of skip that first part.
No, I've been promoted to Anne-Marie.
You have been, yes.
Yes.
And it's an honor. It's a privilege.
It is. It really is. So she's wonderful. Yes.
Well, it also fits in nicely with the topic because the topic is about being unoffendable. And I know that by putting that intro up there, I didn't offend you in the least, which is a very good thing. And
yes.
makes me feel a whole lot better about having made a complete fool out of myself.
Well, not complete, but you're halfway there.
Pretty close. Yeah. It was weird too, because as it was playing, not only was I thinking, why can't I stop this and put the right one on? But I was also thinking, and I don't even know, I think it's because of the similarity of the sounding of the words, but I was thinking of an old song by Nat King Cole called Unforgettable. And I was replacing the word unoffendable and unforgettable and hearing Nat King Cole sing unoffendable.
Well, I have an idea. So I didn't know this before the show, but maybe we should get AI to record that song and replace it with unoffendable. I mean, that would be fantastic.
That would be a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unoffendable. That's what you are.
There you go. And why that matters, because this came from a social media post that I made. And the concepts that, and again, this is probably a show where we'll offend some people by talking about being unoffendable. But
well, we do that regularly, though. That's like par for the course around here.
Outstanding. That's sort of our goal. But the idea for me is, I can't, when, for example, not you particular, Walt, we said, well, I didn't mean to offend you. I said, in a weird way, I'm like, do you think you're capable of offending me? That's more of
it's a great question. Yeah.
Because I have, when somebody says, well, Joel, I don't want to offend you. It's like, well, I'm baffled at the fact you think you can. I mean, that's actually almost offendable. I'm offended.
Actually, anytime I ever hear somebody say, I don't mean to offend you, the first thought that goes to my mind is, okay, so what is it that you're about to say that you think is offensive?
Well, no, that you're declaring the statement of something that would be offendable or offensive. Yeah. And but why it matters so much is when you get to the point in life, and this is one of I have found many benefits to aging, and particularly with my brain, I feel my brain is better right now than it was when I was 30 years of age. I have a great, still physically strong, everything's good. But one of the things that I really have graduated to is I don't care what other people think. And I don't mean that in a way that I'm antisocial, but other people are anything they're thinking about me is based on their opinion, their life, and what's going on. It doesn't affect me. So if somebody says something, even with the intent to offend, they can't, because I just don't allow that. And it isn't because I'm trying to, be better than anyone else. It's just, why would I care what somebody else says or thinks?
It's almost like you reach a point in life where it feels like there just isn't enough time for that.
Yes. I have a lot going on, have a great life. And if someone, well, so-and-so said this about you, okay, well, first of all, why are you telling me? Because you're on source for that. And second, most people that would have any direct contact with me knows pretty much. I'd be like, I don't care. And I don't mean that. When people say you don't care, it's almost like, oh, well, you're just giving up. No, I have too much great stuff to focus on. So if someone attempts to offend me, I just generally don't even accept it or even comment on it. And even if it's something that there's nothing that I feel I will never get upset about what somebody else has said, because it's just based on what they're thinking and their opinion. And that I don't know why that would bother me, but there was a time in my life when that was big. That was huge when somebody would say something. I felt, oh my God, I have to prove myself. I'll defend myself. I don't have to do that anymore.
That's nice. It's a great feeling when you don't have to do that anymore. It's a release off of your shoulders, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you live that way, that's basically living with an ongoing fear that never ends. It's chronic.
Well, it's chronic, and it's also part of that most people that get offended have some form of rumination going on about the concept. They're thinking about it a lot.
Right.
And so when we're looking at the reason why it's important to be unoffended or be unoffendable is to understand again how the law of attraction works. So when you're spending your energy being offended and you're thinking about it, and I can't believe they said that, that's an energy that you're putting out there. There'll be more things that you find offensive. They're the acceptance of other people and their belief systems is something that's not well tolerated now
Mm.
in society. But it's everybody's opinion is their opinion, and it's based on where they came from, their backgrounds, what their childhood was like. You know, a child that's born in inner city Detroit and somebody that's born in Midtown Manhattan in in the ultimate lap of luxury have two different experiences. So they can't possibly see things the same. So one could be offended by the other's beliefs, but in reality, it's not understanding the process of all this. And I know a lot of times I work with people trying to learn to develop a thicker skin, let things roll off. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And be able to move on from that because it's such a freeing experience. Anxiety, being offended often comes with anxiety about the process or what they're thinking. And it's just amazing that a lot of people don't have the ability to simply say, I don't care about that.
Yeah, I guess it's amazing. I mean, from my perspective, it actually isn't terribly surprising. Now that maybe that's because it's colored by how I experience people. I mean, I experience
Right.
part of it has to do with people I have here on the show because I have, excuse me, a very high caliber of people who are guests on the show and co-hosts. But it's also based on just people I meet in everyday life, and I continue to be both intrigued and astonished, and at times a little bit dismayed over all the different ways that people basically set themselves up. Because humans are really good at setting themselves up. And I know that from personal experience because I was really good at setting myself up. I still can do it. I
Yes.
did it a whole lot better back then. I was really skilled at it.
Well, I mean, it's good to be good at stuff,
Yeah,
and
right. But there are also certain skills it's good to leave behind.
exactly. You have to develop the ones that actually serve you. But
Right.
the premise of being hyper vigilant about people offending you, it's not believe. A lot of people sort of accept that. So people that are
Mm,
offended are often finding some truth into what the statement was that's offensive. So
mm.
they can identify with it. One time, my middle son Chris, he came back from daycare and he was very upset. And he was like fourth grade. He said, I got in a fight today. And I said, why? He says, one of the kids told a racist joke about you.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, huh, that I'm white? But that what I don't understand. And he's like, well, no, he said, and I said, well, son, number one, I don't care. You don't need to be getting in fights for dad.
Mm.
Second, it doesn't even make sense. It's just something that but you're just looking for a reason. So I appreciate you standing up for me, but I don't need fourth grade protection. I'm good. But it was this event that he was offended that somebody would say something offensive about me, but it's just I still don't understand what he meant. It was a racist joke because I don't get that, but it
That-
doesn't matter.
But
But it
but
was
what you're
this.
describing is actually quite familiar. I mean, it's a little bit amusing because it's the story of your middle son and what it's like growing up and so forth.
Yeah,
But it's very much of an echo of what I see a lot and what I've learned a lot by talking to people just in everyday life. Especially today, you kind of made reference to it earlier, but especially today, there are large numbers of people who it almost seems like they're looking for reasons to feel offended.
absolutely,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? It's almost like they can't get through the next hour unless they feel offended by something.
Well, one of my clients did really well in school, and he had a rare acceptance to Harvard,
Mm,
and so he had a little party, and it was very hard to do,
hmm.
regardless of what you feel about anything. It's
Absolutely.
just yeah, I mean it's very limited that you can
Oh
get in
yeah.
there. So they had a party. I stopped by the party. Well, he has this uncle. that his only response was, I guess you're going to turn into a liberal now. And I'm like, well, of all the things, your
Mm,
nephew just accomplished something amazing,
mm,
and you're somehow offended by him going to a school that you perceive as being liberal, and that
mm.
doesn't, it's just
That's an
it's that.
example of it. That's
Yeah,
looking
and
for it.
there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of people that make assumptions. There's a lot of people that are scanning the horizon and say, well, if you say one thing about a politician or the other side, you just jump on and well, my candidate only raped 7 women, yours raped
Yeah,
23.
yeah, right.
So, oh, okay, well, thank God. It's just but it's almost like that absurd stuff that goes on of everybody can believe what they want to believe, but what has been lost, if you don't agree with the other person, then you're vilified.
And honestly, what I see more of than that, although you're right, there is quite a bit of that. But the thing I see even more of that is people who incessantly insist on focusing on just how bad the political divide is.
Yes.
And you can try to distract their attention, and it's almost a guarantee within 5 minutes they're going to be back on that again.
Yeah.
And what they don't seem to understand is they're doing the exact same thing.
But that's the narrative. But when you wake up in the morning and when you have the hierarchy of what's going on in your brain and what's important, there is a group of people that on both sides, by the way. I mean, I know people
Oh
that
yeah,
just can't
and even in the
remove.
middle.
Yeah, yeah. It's just the idea that, well, yeah, but here's the problem. Here's what's going on. This is good or this is bad. Or this, and they're, whatever side they're on, there's a narrative that just permeates their entire
Hmm.
existence of where we're at. And it goes further, but the idea of when I'm filtered for nothing that is everything that's wrong, that I'm offended by anyone who doesn't see it or agree with me
Mm,
because it's so
yeah,
important to me. Like,
yeah.
for example, now again, nothing offends me, and you know that I can bounce off of anything. But if somebody, you know me and what matters to me. So if somebody came up to me and said, quit talking about these foster care kids. They're just obnoxious. They deserve to
Yeah,
be there.
that would not work well with you.
I would have a hard time
Hmm.
not being offended by that. I now
Understandably, understandably.
because that occupies such a big space in my belief system. It is to me the most underserved population. They're just totally ignored. And for
Hmm.
somebody that would actually go the other side of that,
Yeah.
which anybody that knows me well enough would not remotely consider saying that.
No,
Yeah,
no.
but just say if it did happen, then yes, because it operates for such a big thing for me,
Mm.
and that
It's a
makes
valid
it
point. It's a
yeah.
very
So that
valid point because if it's something that's really big for us, no matter what
yes,
it is, in your case, it happens to be underserved kids, but
yes,
no matter what it is, if it's something that's big for us, we're going to be more sensitive to it. We just
absolutely.
are.
Yes.
So
And
now
so,
it isn't so much are we sensitive, it's what are we going to do about the sensitivity?
right. And so, but even in that case, if somebody were to do that to me or say that to me, my initial reaction would be, but my secondary reaction is this person is obviously seeking a response from me.
Mm,
And
yes.
I'm not going to allow that to go on.
Yes.
Now I won't be around that person. Probably the last time that I'd ever be in that person's orbit if that would happen.
by
But
by choice, by
yes,
intention.
absolutely. But
Hmm.
I'm not going to allow my central nervous system to be affected by that.
Right.
When reality is, this person, whoever would have that opinion, is not somebody I would really. Anybody that has that opinion, I wouldn't care about their opinion. If that makes
Yeah.
any sense,
Yeah.
they're
And
irrelevant
you
in my
wouldn't
life.
want to hang out with them. Why would you
No, my
want
goodness, no. It's that, and that's the thing. I don't hang out with negative people. I don't hang. There's a lot of people I don't hang out with.
to? Hmm.
That. So it's understandable. But so when I say be unoffendable, there's things out there that will emotionally attach to you. It's just what you do with it that matters. Look at the source. Understand what's trying to happen. Because I have to protect my energy, which is number one. My the way I feel, the emotions I during the day. And if I have something that lights that in the wrong direction, the law of attraction picks up on that.
And so if you want to be unoffendable, if that's really what the goal is, and I think it's a great goal to have, and you know that you have a sore spot like that, the smart thing to do, in my opinion, now there's going to be a lot of different ways that people will deal with this stuff, but for me, the smart thing to do is don't put myself in situations where that's going to happen.
Well, exactly. Don't be in a place where I would hear that.
Yeah.
It's that makes sense to me, and it makes sense to the I go where my energy is attracted,
Mm.
the like-minded people, I go there. I don't hang out long with somebody who would ever be in that orbit or say those things. It's just I don't do that. So you can be careful where you go or who you surround yourself with. That's the most likely way to do it. Like a moth to the flame, some people are attracted to the almost attracting the offense. It's almost like they're scanning, as you
Yes.
said earlier, scanning the horizon. I want to say something and you be offended. There's an interesting thing that I only see it on TikTok. I'm sure it's everywhere, but there's a group of people, they call themselves First Amendment auditors.
First Amendment, what?
Auditors. They audit.
Auditors. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So what they do, and it's I mean, obviously they're getting a lot of views on social media doing this. So they take their cameras and they go to public places and they just start filming people.
Okay.
Now, filming in public places is legal, no matter what, it's legal.
Completely.
So what they do, and they usually do it to older people who believe their constitutional right or privacy outweighs their right to film. So they get really close to somebody, film them, and that freaks them out. And they say, you can't film me, you don't have permission. Then it escalates, and the person, like some grumpy old dude is going to come strike at them, and the police get called. And it's this whole event that these people are out. It's not funny to watch, but it's interesting to watch. And they know the people to film. Like if I saw somebody filming me, I just wave and walk on by. I don't care.
Mm.
But these people that they the ones that make it to their show, I'm sure most people don't even care,
Right.
is that but they'll be like they get into arguments and they call the police and the police come out and say, well, you basically you're in public. There's no expected right of privacy when you're in public.
Mm.
And it just freaks them out. But it's like these people are out there trying to offend people, and it gets a lot of social media views. And I mean, there's been cops that lost their job over this because they said that you don't have a right to film, and they just push the cop to the cop loses it and arrests them. Turns out that's a false arrest. They get fired. It's a wild scenario to look at.
What you're describing, first of all, is fascinating. Second of all, it's very similar in kind of an inverse way to a phenomenon that I see a lot, which is you're describing people who go out of their way to force an issue in order to get attention for having forced the issue.
Yes.
And the issue they're trying to force is this whole thing about First Amendment rights. What I see is people who kind of do the same kind of thing, but they do it a little bit inverse to that. They're not looking to try to find somebody else to turn into a victim. They're looking to be the victim.
Oh, yeah.
And in trying to be the victim, it really doesn't matter what you choose to do in terms of interacting with them. You can agree with them. You can disagree with them. You can propose alternatives to what they're saying. Doesn't make any difference. They're all, every single time, no matter which way you come at them, they're going to come back to finding a way to reinforce that they're a victim.
Yes.
And I find that to be really, I mean, you probably encountered that a lot with your practice because you're a coach. But I find that fascinating that there are people who give a lot of energy to being a victim, almost professionally, like it's a calling.
And that people that there's people that defend their perceived disabilities. They defend their victimhood. It's like, well, like one of my favorite posts I just recently posted years ago. I had a young man in my office. He was 14. Great kid, but first time meeting with me, and we were talking about the changes it needed to make, and what stuff that had how to do hard stuff, and his mom and dad got divorced, and he was just devastated by all that. And he goes, well, Joel, that sounds pretty good, but I don't think you've ever had any struggle, have you?
Yeah, right.
I was like, oh, well, I mean, perception, and so but I didn't just go over my litany of, his words were, you've been very lucky. I don't think you've ever struggled. And I go, I am very lucky. I didn't get into some of the struggles I've had, but and he, by the way, is doing fantastic now, but there's a perception that, like the one lady one time, everybody that I work with, every single person that I work with, whether you have no arms, no legs, their exercise is involved. That might be seated exercise. If you can just move your head, it's moving your head. There's just got to be that. And there's people that will argue with you to the very end that they can't exercise.
Mm.
And so I mentioned this one to you before. So this lady calls and I said, well, we need to get more movement. And she goes, you didn't hear me. I've lost my legs in car wrecks. And I go, in a car wreck. I go, do your arms work? Yeah. She didn't like that, but
No, probably not. It
but
undermines
it
the
ended up
ability.
being good. She's like, yeah, I needed to get over this. Yes, my legs are gone, but yes, am I going to live? Then I got to do these things. So it's a necessary confrontation. But just becoming a society of the victims, where I'm fascinated by a lot of young people that I see on Instagram. They list their diagnosis as part of their description of who they are.
Yeah. Well,
I
you
am.
also encounter that with actual clients. You've told me
Oh,
stories.
I do that all the time. Yeah. But I find it just randomly putting out to the world. I'm borderline personality. I have ADHD. I have depression and anxiety and PTSD. And that's their bio.
Mm.
It's like, why would you lead with that? That's. But
Well, and I think that's the key question. Why would they lead with it? I think the reason that they lead with it is because this is the craziest thing to say, and yet this is the conclusion I've come to. They think that's where their energy is going to come from.
Well, they have labeled that their definition. So when I ask you, this is just a fascinating thing. So if we know each other real well, so it's not that effective. But I say, Walt, what do you do? Just that open question.
Mm-hmm.
What if somebody asks you what do you do? What do you say?
As little as possible. No, actually, that's not what I say. What I usually say is I have a lot that I do with my AI project, and I'm also an entrepreneur. That's my standard.
Okay, which is accurate. But so when somebody, when you have a definition of who you are, and you put that as a label. So when one of the oddest encounters I ever had, I picked up a client. This is many years ago, 25 years ago. I picked up a client from the airport. They flew in from somewhere. We were in Tampa at the time, and I had a vague description of him, and he had a vague description of me. Mm-hmm. And so we were trying to find each other, and I saw the guy looking, and that was him. So I walked up to him, and he goes, and I'm sure he was nervous because he's coming to treatment. But I walked up and said, "Hey, I'm Joel," and he goes, "Hi, my grandmother molested me."
Oh, jeez. There's an introduction.
I'm like, okay, we'll circle back to that, but probably not at the airport. but now, I'm sure he was nervous, but that was his introduction, and so internally, that's sort of the definition of who he is.
Yes,
and that's where the danger is. How do you define yourself? What do you do? So that one of my big problems with 12-step programs that, they hate me about as much as I hate them at this point.
Well documented on this program.
Yeah. I don't really care anymore. But what they insist you do is you introduce yourself as like, "Hi, I'm Joel. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, I'm Joel. I'm a compulsive gambler." And law of attraction, you state what you believe, so I have never been a fan of that. I have never been, there's people that have had 30 years clean, and they in my mind, they're not compulsive gamblers anymore. That's a whole different topic. But
right.
They'll go, "Hi, I'm Steve. I'm a compulsive gambler." And I'm like, "Are you?" Because it's been 30 years you haven't gambled. I'm not thinking that's real high on the list, but it's so logged in their brain to that's who they are. It just becomes part of the definition of who they are. So usually people that are offended, you're attacking their perceived definition of who they are.
It's a good point. In fact, you're reminding me of something that I read, and I think it actually came from a law of attraction teacher. The teacher was basically saying that instead of saying "I am something," replace it with "I experience something." And the point of doing it that way was to start separating yourself from the identity process you were just talking about, to stop identifying with it and simply recognize it as something that you've experienced. And, if you experience it, okay, you experienced it, but now you no longer have to make it part of who you are.
Exactly. And that's sort of the goal. So you putting yourself in a position of, part of changing is redefining your definition of yourself. And
Hmm.
one of the reasons that I'm very big on internal dialogue and how you
Mm.
talk to yourself and all that is for
Oh
that
yeah.
reason. So, when I get somebody's information of what matters to them, and then I try to say, okay, this isn't what's matching what you're wanting, so we got to reprogram that. What
Mm.
you're definite, like when I'm unlucky, I can't have a relationship, I'm poor, I can't find a job, and you're speaking that into existence, and it's your reality.
Hmm.
And so being able to reprogram that, and there's a guy that I'm been working with. He said, I just can't find a job, and I go, okay, and we need to. And he said, well, I don't know the point of looking. And I go, well, I don't either, to be honest with you. And he's like, oh my God, really? And I go, if you set out looking for a job already having the conclusion that you can't get it, you're
Yeah,
wasting your time.
absolutely.
So has anybody gotten a job this week? Well, yeah. Okay, so is it fair to say your observation is not accurate? It's based on experience in your
Hmm.
brain. But the idea that he said, well, I applied to 4 jobs last week, and I said, okay, you're not working. To be honest with you, you've set the bar pretty low. I know people that apply for 50 jobs in a week when they're not working and have more luck. But the biggest thing is just reprogramming the narrative so they're not attracting the opposite of what they think they want to do. Like I'm so fat I can't lose weight. And I'm, oh my God, that's got to be horrible.
Well, it's an astonishing statement.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a statement that on the face of it, you ask, how can that possibly be true?
Yeah, yeah, and so when I do I've been on a little weight loss journey myself. I don't know if we've talked about that, but
Occasionally, yeah.
yeah. So I've done real well. Lost about 12 pounds in about a month, and you know what I did, Walt, is I did the most simple thing. I made a food diary.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah,
so radical.
it's so radical, and it's something I espouse. I hate to admit I've never done it.
Is that right? First
I
time.
talk about that because I just assume, because all I do is eat really good food.
Mm.
So I said, I don't need a food diary. So what I discovered is I always thought, and they are, cashew nuts are very healthy.
They are.
Yep. So I have a big, gigantic thing of cashew nuts. I walk by every day and get me a handful and maybe 2 handfuls. Some days, one day I did 6 handfuls.
Oof.
And every handful is at least 200 calories. I got big hands. It might even be more than that. So if on 6, if it's 200 calories and I get 6, that's 1,200 calories in a day
Mm,
in cashew nuts. So
right.
I immediately identified that. So that one change, I just stopped eating cashews, got them out of the house because I don't have, I will eat them if they're here. But I gave them to the neighbor, and in about a month, 12 pounds have fallen off just by that one move.
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So,
amazing. It's an interesting fact too that a lot of the reasons that people come up with, because we're talking for a moment about weight loss. I mean, we talk about a lot of topics, but that's the one that we're currently on. It's amazing to me how, when the topic of weight loss comes up, how infrequently people are willing to acknowledge and admit that they're eating the food.
oh,
I mean, that's that. It's the most amazing part of all. I mean, maybe part of it is because we're so used to seeing all these diet plans, and none of them talk about actually eating less food.
yeah. Well, and what, so years ago, I had this client, and local doctor referred, and she was bedridden because she was so overweight.
Mm,
And he said, I don't know how to help this woman. This is before these drugs that help with weight loss. I mean,
right.
she didn't. She said, the doctor said, it's obviously behavioral. There's nothing hormonal wrong with her causing this. She is going to be diabetic. She's pre-diabetic now, but she can't get out of bed. And so would you go to her house and visit and do an assessment, figure out what we got to do? So we go there. I go there and I meet the family, very nice family. And they said, we don't know what to do.
Mm,
So when I walk in and meet her, she was a lovely lady. And she
hmm.
said, I'm so glad you're here. I hope you can help me.
Mm-hmm.
On her bed is a gigantic package of double stuffed Oreos.
Oh my goodness.
And there's 3 empty bottles of Mountain Dew, 2-liter Mountain Dews beside her bed.
This is not hard to figure out.
So I said, I have an idea. Let me go out with an idea. I said, maybe we should stop eating the double stuffed Oreos. Just say it. And I said, and then right after that, I asked myself, I go, she can't get out of bed. How are the double stuffed Oreos making it into the room?
Interesting question.
Yeah. So I said, let me go talk to your family. So I said, okay, there's Mountain Dew bottles, I assume recently had been drank. And then we
it's
have
probably fair to say that the double stuffed Oreo packages have been taken away.
Yes. And so we go through this process. I said, so who's bringing her the food? And so finally the grandmother's there. She's just so miserable without it. I go, okay, I understand that's called addiction. That's like, I said, if she were on heroin, would you be bringing her heroin? She goes, no, it's just food though and all this. And I said, you're killing her. And I said, so for me to be effective on what we're going to have to stop number one, the double stuffed Oreos have to stop. We gotta do a food diary of what goes in. And so anybody that cheats on this is going to be part of what kills her. So I got to get pretty blunt. And the mom who was all in on this, I said, I need you to, every piece of food that she eats, just record it. Just record it. And twice she caught the grandmother trying to sneak other things in.
Really?
Finally, they just made the grandmother move to another relative. And so when the grandmother moved, now, of course, the client is yelling and screaming. She's starving to death. She's not, clearly. But once she got past all that, we got her healthy food. We got her the healthy stuff. She went from 650 down to 500. Then she was able to stand up for little bits of time. We developed a bedside sort of exercise movement. Then she went down to 4. I think the next time I saw her, this has been a few months, it was like 4 something. Then it got, because what we were shooting for, if she could get down to 300, she could have the lap band surgery. The initial, I left that part out, but that was the initial goal. And then it started going really well. Then she started getting into it. So she decided, she texted me one day, she said, I walked to the mailbox and back.
Whoa.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? She said, I feel good. So she started, I said, do you think tomorrow you can walk to the mailbox and maybe 10 feet further and back? She goes, yeah. So bottom line is we texted every day. And she kept extending that. She then walked a quarter mile, which is around her block, and made it back. And as she got strong, the weight just started falling off. So when she got down to 300, she made one of the bravest decisions I've ever heard about. She said, I don't need that surgery.
Excellent.
She said, I can do this now. So I haven't seen her in years. The last time I checked in with her, she was a healthy 190.
Wow.
And she's had the skin removal stuff, and she's back to work. And it all happened when they didn't allow that narrative that she kept saying, I have to have this food. And so my point behind that story is, not only does our internal dialogue influence us, but the people around us can buy into that internal dialogue and support it. And that's the worst thing you do. So one of the things that I used to tell the teachers with all 3 of my kids is, I've said this along the way, all 3 of my kids were adopted from foster care. And they are, they all were each different, but horrible struggles, horrible childhoods.
Right.
So when I would meet with the teachers at their new schools, I said, let's start with one concept. Do not feel sorry for my children. Because I'm reprogramming that with them. So I don't want you to expect less. Now, I need latitude as we move forward, but I don't want you to hold them any less accountable. I want you to, don't feel sorry for them. I know we all feel sorry for them, but I can't have that as a narrative supporting that. And the guidance counselor said, I've never heard anybody with adopted kids say that, but she said, I want to recommend that for everybody realize
Wow.
that,
Yeah.
because I don't want my kids to go through life with a narrative they are less than or somehow broken and not able to do what other people do. Yeah, yes, terrible stuff happened, but they also have all been very resilient. They've overcome. You know, I told you Justin recently he's an HVAC apprentice right now. He's
Yeah.
thriving.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Justin.
Yeah, yeah, he's doing fantastic. So we have all of this going on, but also I'm not allowing a narrative that supports anything other than that.
Which is phenomenally good. Something else occurred to me when you told the story about the woman who was at 650 pounds and how she eventually came down to 190. Anybody who's paid any attention to weight loss industry claims, marketing, and so forth knows that there are countless stories of people who have lost weight. When you read the articles about people who aren't able to keep the weight off, that's when you find out how many people end up putting it back on afterward.
Yeah.
And the one factor that seems to come up over and over and over again, it isn't always written up in the articles, but you can kind of read it behind the scenes, so to speak, is that the ones who put the weight back on didn't change the mindset. They
Well,
changed the behavior.
you nailed the reason lap band surgery doesn't work
Right.
is what you nailed. And also it's still, the jury's still out on the weight loss shots and all that. But the what happens with when you just address the weight, you totally ignore everybody that I ever met that had lap band surgery lost a ton of weight and gained all of it, if not more, back.
Right.
Because they never addressed the issue of why they were heavy to begin with.
And when you told the story of the 650 pounder who went to 190, I could tell from the storyline, from the way you told the story, that she got there because of a change of mindset. And the evidence of that was when she said she didn't want to have the surgery.
Well, that was what we were working on more than I was looking at the food as a secondary causality, so to speak,
Right.
to the mindset. And so getting her on the right mindset changed everything.
Yeah.
So this is taking place over several years. She's kept the weight off, and she occasionally checks in. She's anywhere from 180 to 190.
Fantastic.
She's a tall lady too, so she's fit. Yeah. She goes to the gym, but it's done. That weight's gone. That weight's gone.
And it's not coming back.
It's not coming back because her mindset is different. It's the ones that you take the shortcuts without doing the mindset change. That's why it's not effective.
Which means that it's not about what method you use to lose the weight, which is the exact thing that all the marketers are pushing. They're pushing the method. We've got a new method that's better than all the other methods.
Well, that's Western medicine. So
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just go after that one symptom. So I look at obesity as there's multiple symptoms, and being overweight is one of them. Mm-hmm. And so you got to address the food, obviously, but you also have to address the mindset. What's the trauma? Why do you do that? Why do you what is the psychological reason that you have allowed yourself to get that big? What goes on? And by doing that work and then adjusting the mindset to I have a theory that has no scientific basis whatsoever. So I'll throw that out there ahead of time. But it is something that a lot of people have found beneficial, and I find beneficial when I'm losing weight. Mm-hmm. Is hunger. I have adjusted what hunger means. So when I'm hungry, I close my eyes and envision that hunger is signaling my body to burn fat. So the hunger is the most efficient fat burning time. That is not science. That is not true, by the way. But I have convinced my brain thinks that. So I sit there going, okay, my fat burning right now is optimal. My body's craving me to eat something. The longer I can delay that craving and distract from that, then that's would be the biggest fat burning time. So I view that sort of like a Joe Dispenza concept of focusing on fat loss, the mechanics of fat loss. And, it's a good tool. It gets me through those hunger moments. It gets me through that.
Yeah, if that works, absolutely. I mean, it's not necessarily one that everybody's going to be able to adopt, but if you can adopt that one, that's powerful. That's real
that's that, but that's the kind, most people won't be able to do that because that, my belief system. So that matches my
right,
belief system. So I
right.
do believe, for me, to be honest with you, that it is the most
I
powerful.
believe you. Yeah.
Yeah. But there is no science to back that up. But
Yeah.
I don't really care about that, as you know.
Well, but what this does tie into, both the story of the woman who was 650, who came down to 190, and the follow-ups that we've been talking about here, what they all reinforce for me ties back to the original topic. The original topic was being unoffendable.
Yep.
And the reason they tie back for me is that I find that people, right now we're focusing on weight loss situations. So people who are struggling with weight loss are the ones who, one way or another, they're a little bit offendable when it comes to, they're sensitive, is the way we often express it, right? They're
Right.
sensitive to anybody who has anything to say that's not what they had in mind for what their own journey should be like where weight is concerned. And I find that to be fascinating, but I also find it to be like a little exclamation point that says, hey, pay attention to what I'm doing to myself here, because I'm making myself be offendable as a way of perpetuating the process that got me into this mess in the first place.
I've shared this story, and I love what you used because this brought up another story that I'm on a show one time with this lady, and I'm a guest, and she is interviewing about trauma and law of attraction, depression, and anxiety.
I think I remember this one, but yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. So I didn't know I was about to be hijacked. I thought we were gonna just anyway. I'll tell you how it happened. So she basically she said, well, I said, I am no longer, I said, I went through severe depression, severe anxiety. And she said, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry to hear that. She said, so have I. I still battle. And I said, I'm sorry to hear that. And she said, what medication was effective for you?
Mm.
And I go, I didn't take medication. I tried medication and it had no value for me whatsoever. And she
Mm.
goes, well, then how did you get rid of it? And I could just tell we were going in a dark spot.
Right.
And I said, well, for me, and always preface this, I'm not a doctor. This is what worked for me. Exercise, intense exercise, the law of attraction, mindset, being grateful, good nutrition is what broke me out of and cured my depression and anxiety. She goes, then you didn't have real depression and anxiety.
Yeah, it wasn't good enough.
I'm like, oh, I said, really? And she said, well, if it's real, then you that stuff doesn't work. And I go, you asked me what worked for me. And she said, I am tired of people saying I just need to go exercise. I want to stop you right there. I didn't say you needed to go exercise. You asked me what worked for me.
Mm.
And she could not, she got so mad at me. She
Mm.
said, this is the stuff that messes with psychiatry. You get some pseudo professional that comes on here and she's on this rant about, the only way to do this is through medication and years of therapy. And I go, I did it with no medication and pretty much minimal therapy. But I'm not saying that works for you, but she was so defensive. So I ended up she just shut me off on the show. She was
Yeah.
so mad at me.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's interesting how often people can do that. And it's not going to be just somebody who has her particular mindset. It can be somebody who's much more mainstream. And I'll give you an example out of the medical community, one that you already know because you know the story. But around the time of the financial crisis, 2008, I don't remember exactly where, but somewhere in the like 1 or 2 years of that period, I was diagnosed with macular degeneration in both eyes. Right. And it was what they call the wet variety rather than the dry variety, which the doctor told me meant I was going to be blind in about 20 years.
Right.
It's worth noting that we're coming up on the 20-year mark, and I'm nowhere near blind. Just saying. But then I would go through the eye appointments every year, and they kept saying, "Oh yeah, you still got the macular degeneration, blah 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 blah. Nothing you do is going to make any difference. It's completely incurable." Up until about 3 years ago, when I actually changed. I had to change doctors. The doctor I had retired. So I changed doctors. All my records got transferred over. And the new doctor, I told him about the macular degeneration. And he said, I can't detect any. I said, interesting. Okay, well, I've been doing a lot of work on that. That doesn't surprise me, but it's good to hear that. And he said, I don't think you ever actually had it. Now, bear in mind, I had been diagnosed continuously for 12 years,
Right.
being told by different doctors. It wasn't just one doctor; it was multiple doctors told me I had macular degeneration. And this doctor comes along and says, "You never really had it." And I think what that really indicates is I was uttering something that didn't fit their narrative. It didn't fit their understanding of how things work. And so therefore it couldn't be true.
Yep. Yep.
And that happens a lot.
What happened, especially in the medical world,
Yeah.
it's, I have a very bold statement again that will anger a lot of people. Type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle condition.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a real medical condition. It's a lifestyle condition. And it's when you eat too much and your insulin sensitivity dies or gets bad, and then you have to sometimes go on insulin or take metformin or one of these drugs to help with that. And there's a narrative in the medical community that it's just incurable.
Yeah.
I know thousands of people that have cured it by just changing their lifestyle. It's so this one guy was his report, he'd had type 2 diabetes for 15 years and been on metformin was his drug he was on, maybe some other drug, and he just accepted it wasn't curable. And I go, I'm sorry, it is curable. I said, if you drop 20 pounds and increase your exercise, it'll go away. And he goes, Joel, the doctor says you're wrong. I said, okay, I'm telling you, I believe that'll happen. I said, I've seen it happen. So, and by the way, it's sleep apnea, which is a side effect that we didn't think would go away, but it did. So
Okay.
what he did was he said, I'll challenge you to that. So he does it, really gets into it. He loses 25 pounds. He's feeling great. Next, he said, I want to go to a different doctor just to get a brand new, fresh start. So doctor does his blood test, and he gave him no indication there was anything else other than that. So blood test came back. He goes, everything's good. And he goes, what about my type 2 diabetes? He goes, no, you don't have that.
Mm.
He goes, but I had it at one point. He goes, you may, but you don't have it now. So it was this thing that, again, there's this label, there's this thing that goes along with the what you tell yourself or what a doctor tells you can become your reality. And whether you had it or didn't have it, I think you probably didn't cured it, to be honest with you, because you're right, the way you handle things. But either way, it doesn't matter. Officially today you don't, and so retroactively you never did. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, I think it's how people justify their offendability. That's why I brought that up.
Yeah.
If you have a narrative and your narrative is counter indicated by somebody else's experience, how do you handle that? How do you deal with that? If you're offendable, then you basically conclude, well, their experience can't be real.
Yeah.
Because for that experience to be real, I would be offended.
Yeah.
That's the offendability piece of it. Whereas unoffendable says, well, hey, that's great. I mean, yeah, it doesn't match my narrative, but I'm okay with that. That's unoffendable.
Yeah. Well,
that's the difference.
Well, I think we circle back to the concept that most things that we get offended about are beliefs that we hold to, that we just, you're violating my core being of who I am by disagreeing with the narrative of who I am. So I want to be offended by that.
And that says a whole lot about how we put the core of our identity together, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Which is tying back exactly to what we talked about at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
What's the identity that we have carved out for ourselves and that we defend on a day-to-day basis?
And one of the things that when my son TJ was about 12, we were in a car, and we were just driving, and he made I'll remember this. We were in South Carolina and sort of a back road going home, and he goes, well, I'm not very smart. Well, I slammed on my brakes. I go, what the hell did you just say? And he goes, I'm not very smart. I go, TJ, you didn't, when you came into my home in 5th grade, you couldn't read. You're now reading on a 7th grade level. Here, I go through the list of things. I said, you can say whatever you want to say. I never want to fucking hear you say you aren't smart enough. Am I clear? And his eyes got really big. And he later told me, he said, that changed the way I thought about it. I said, you were smart. Nobody can do what you did. You're one of the smartest people I ever met. But that narrative that you aren't, I can't accept that narrative.
You're reminding me of something else that I encountered recently with somebody, and it's become, I've come to realize just how important it really is. And at the time, I didn't realize how important it was, but it's quite an important thing. I encountered somebody who basically was making the same kind of argument about, who I am and how I can't be changed and how you can't challenge it or anything along that line. And that if you do try to challenge it, there's something wrong with you. And I recall, I won't go into the details of the situation because I want to protect the person involved. But I recall thinking to myself, what happens to her? It was a her. What happens to her when she does this all the time? What happens when she continues to carry out, the repetition of this belief system against any opposition, against any thought process that in any way stops it or challenges it or whatever? What happens when opportunities come along for her to shift it and she refuses to shift it? What happens when she just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going and then ends up getting validated in her belief? Because, as we know from law of attraction, you keep attracting the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same result over and over again. What happens if that track record becomes her belief system?
Yeah.
And when I asked the questions of myself that way, I realized that's how she got here.
Absolutely.
That's how her definition of herself and how she thought about herself was created by her definition of herself and how she thought about herself.
Well,
it's almost mind-boggling to say it that way, but that's literally what it was.
Well, and that's what happens. People get stuck in this feedback loop, and you don't, which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's like, it doesn't matter. It's just this circular thinking that, I am this, so I can't change it. Well, why do you feel that way? Well, I'm because of this. Well, you're just stuck in the loop, and it's illogical thinking, and but it's very normal in society of how we do things, because again, when you label what matters to you, when you look at what goes on, people that instill, like I have a guy the other day. He's wealthy dude, always. Biggest hypochondriac in the world. His toe hurts. He's got toe cancer or something in his mind.
Wow.
Just every day. He has a concierge doctor, of course, and he has nothing to do. So all he has to do is think about what's wrong with him. And so anyway, he ended up getting this puppy. Well, this puppy is hell on wheels, and he has him running all over the place. He has to go to the vet. He has to do this. He's going to the dog park. And so I've made the observation a month after him having this dog. I said, okay, I'm almost scared to say this because I don't want to break her streak. You haven't been into the doctor in over a month. He goes, well, I haven't had time. I go, exactly.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh my gosh. He said, I said, see, when you have nothing to do but scan the horizon for what's wrong, you will find it.
You'll find
if
it.
you have if you're too busy chasing this crazy ass little puppy. And by the way, on a side note, and you can send your anger toward Walt. Labradoodles are the most obnoxious dogs ever made. Okay, so it used to be Jack Russell Terriers. They have been moved to second. Labradoodles are goofy. They don't have boundaries. They're not smart, and their owners think they're adorable. So just saying. So that's a statement of opinion, but backed by at least my facts.
So now I have to ask the obvious question. I mean, you just set it up so beautifully. I just have to set it up. Not set. I have to ask the question, which is, okay, now that you have this belief system, what happens if you're presented with a Labradoodle that's actually, acceptable?
In this one case, that will not happen because Labradoodles are not allowed near me.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah. This is a fix. I am offering a fixed mindset for Labradoodles. It's the only thing that's fixed. It's not negotiable. You can't convince me of different. It's just, it's like when you basically, they come from two very good dog breeds.
it.
And sometimes when you breed, like, like poodles, for example, are a very hardy. People mistake poodles. They're hardy. They're working dogs.
And
They're
very
strong,
intelligent. Very,
very
very intelligent.
intelligent. And you got the most loyal dog in the world, the goofy Labrador, which is
Oh, they're just kind.
beautiful and loyal and all
Yeah.
that. So you're thinking two of these great breeds combined, it had the opposite effect. It turned into the goofiest, stupidest, most absurd creature on the planet.
He said to send the emails to me. I will forward them to him, just so you know. I mean, I like to be fair about these things.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, I'm just kidding. I don't really hate Labradoodles, but I do think they're obnoxious. I will never own one, but if your Labradoodle is the smartest thing in the world, I believe you.
I'll just stay neutral on this by mentioning one thing that I saw recently about cat and dog owners that I thought really summarized it well. It said that dogs have masters, cats have staff. I thought that pretty much
I love that.
summarized it.
I love that. Yeah, yeah. I actually get along pretty well with cats. We have a mutual understanding.
I understand my cat. My cat understands me very well. He knows exactly how to order me around. He's very good at it.
Yeah,
So.
I tend to be more of a dog person. I don't
Mhm.
have a dog, but we used to, the last pets we've had three bearded dragons,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, they're awesome, great pets. Our
Yeah, they don't
Mango
bark either.
yeah, Mango passed away about a year ago.
Mm.
Was our last one, but they're fascinating, and but the reptiles are, I've just grown to love because the assumption they have no emotion and they don't have it is hilarious because they
It's
are
not even
goofy.
close.
They're
Yeah.
just funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've seen the posts that you posted, so I got the sense of what they're like just from watching your posts.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. So, but I mean, I'm a big animal fan, and I don't want you to get rid of your Labradoodles, but
Well, I don't think we're going to be offended on either one of those, to be perfectly honest.
no, not at all. Hopefully, that's a good lesson. Anybody that's about to write in, go, wait a minute, this is what they're talking about. I don't need to be offended by this.
Well, I was going to finish off by trying to croon Nat King Cole one more time, but I don't think my voice is up to it, so I'll just leave that one alone. I'll close it by saying this: you can choose to be offendable, you can choose to be unoffendable. It's really a question of which one you're going to choose.
Absolutely. And life is there is a calendar. I don't know if I've shared this with you. There's a calendar that you can order. It has you given your birth date, and they have little circles like fill in the blank dots,
right,
of every day for 100 years.
Oh wow.
And so whatever day you order the calendar, it comes filled in to that date that they mail it, right?
Okay.
So your job is to fill in every day passes by. And what it visualizes, in February, I'm going to be 64. What it visualizes is, in my calendar, this much is gone, 2/3 is gone, and over here you got this much left.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people can look at that and say, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Or I have a reduced amount of time to what I've already lived. I think that's fair to say. I'm going to savor it, take advantage of it. I am not going to spend time being angry and offended and being the victim, because it's a waste of time. So when you
Totally.
look, to me, every day I look at that calendar, and the smaller size, and I'll circle in my thing, it's not a negative. It is a reminder to, what am I focusing my attention on? Is it making me laugh? Is it fun? Is it what I enjoy doing? If I don't, I just don't need to mess with it. It doesn't matter.
I agree with you. In fact, I feel I handle it a little bit differently, but I feel very much the same way. To me, calendar is almost unimportant.
Oh, it's not. It had no varying, except it's a good visual for me.
Sure, if it works for you, great.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I mean, I actually, the way I actually do it in my own mind, I take whatever amount of extra time I want to have, and if I have exceeded the typical lifespan of a human being in order to achieve that. I just add on to my lifespan. So
Yeah.
my lifespan just keeps increasing every year.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
So, that way I don't have to worry about it because, okay, well, it's way off in the future. I don't have to worry about that. And it affects the way that I think now. It's the way I live right now gets affected by it because I just don't adopt the idea of being old. I just don't do that.
No, I don't view myself as old. I know age-wise on paper it looks that way, but physically oh my gosh, I don't feel old at all.
And you know who influenced me the most on that was my grandmother.
No, really?
When I was a teenager, I asked my grandmother, what's it like to be old? And she kind of looked at me cross-eyed and said, I really don't feel old. I said, well, what do you feel like? Do you feel like you felt when you were 18? She said, yeah. I said, really? She said, yeah, I feel exactly the same. And at the time that seemed kind of unbelievable, but my grandmother was extremely truthful. So I couldn't dismiss it.
Right.
I had to actually take it seriously. And thank goodness I did, because by taking that seriously, what I realized was it's a mindset. It actually has nothing to do with years. It's mindset.
And in my case, physically, I'm still in great shape, all that. Yeah. But the thing that mainly stands out for me is without discussion, without any argument, my brain is far better than it was at 30.
Oh, yes.
I mean, man, that was
a rough time. 30s were rough for me too.
Yeah. And my brain right now is still, I don't feel any cognitive decline. I feel more focused. I feel I've unleashed my brain in a way that I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly studying. It's like I'm a sponge now that I didn't remotely have the focus to do when I was 30.
Something else came to my mind too just now. We've got to wrap it up because we're getting past time here, but something else came to my mind. Something that I'm hearing more and more these days, which is use it or lose it.
Yep.
And it basically an idea of, make sure you keep exercising, keep yourself active and so forth. And I realized that I don't actually think of it that way. I've turned it around in my mind to think it's not use it or lose it. It's use it because I like to use it. Because I actually just feel better using it. If I don't use it, I don't feel good. So it's not like I have to threaten myself with use it or lose it. It's more like if I don't use it, I don't feel good.
Oh yeah, I do it because I love it. The way I feel much better when I'm active and moving and I'm completing a degree in neuroscience right now that I've been working on. It's like, why do I need another degree? I don't.
It's not about needing the degree.
Yeah.
It really has nothing to do with it because you have more certifications than God. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I mean, it's absurd. It really is. But it's fun. I enjoy learning, so I don't care. I don't care about it anymore. Other than I just enjoy it.
And I don't even look for certifications. I mean, I've gotten a few. I don't even keep track of them. I know I've gotten some in the past. I can't even tell you how many I've gotten. I really have no idea.
As time goes on, I counted one time. The last time I counted, I had 4 degrees and 92 certifications.
It's a lot more than I officially got, that's for sure.
Yeah, but it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
It's irrelevant. Because
I get them because I enjoy the learning process. It's not about the certification.
Yeah, and so much of what I learned didn't have a certification attached, but that doesn't mean it wasn't worth learning.
Absolutely.
I learned a lot that was very worthwhile.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I just don't even think about that. That's just another example of being unoffendable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff. So thank you. Good conversation. Hopefully it was helpful to people who have now decided they're going to be unoffendable, which would be a wonderful thing. So
absolutely.
Thank you to those who are unoffendable. Thank you to those of you who are offendable, who are still, learning in process, trying to figure out how to get there. We're glad that you came along for the ride as well.
And God bless the Labradoodles.
Thank you to the Labradoodles. That's right. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.